We're at 7:05 on whatever it is today, August 8, 2018. Guys, you just Richard Riley's present.
John Regan present.
John Devereaux present.
Al Gilbo present.
And I'm going to be appointing Tom Cooney to the board this evening. He's an alternate, but he'll be filling in until Laura shows up. Oop, Tom. All right. Oh, we will have 5 persons. We have 3 cases to hear this evening. First one, they basically go on the schedule in the order that the applications are submitted. And the first one is
Richard Jefferson, right?
Yep. I'll do the reading, I guess. Yep. Richard Jefferson, 6 Nesson Cape Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. The location of the property. Oh, you can come on in. I already pointed you. The location of the property is 281 Charles Bancroft Highway, map 12, lot 27. It's a 38-acre parcel, which is currently used as a single-family residence. The applicant is seeking a special exception for a proposed driveway, which will be in the wetland buffer zone. And we have a letter from Jeffrey Land Survey LLC, which is representing the applicant here. The applicant, Richard Jefferson, respectfully requests to subdivide one lot into 3 lots, one of which would be a building lot, one of which would be an existing dwelling, and one lot would be the land remaining. In order to access the building lot, the applicant would be required to construct a driveway to the proposed dwelling, a portion of which would be inside the wetland buffer zone. Please see attached location worksheet for illustration. Proposed driveway is to be constructed with 3 culverts and to be super elevated so that the water on the north side of the drive will drain toward the existing wetlands area. The intent of the design is to not contribute to any perceived water accumulation on land to the north. Please note that the design is subject to revisions and field modification as the town sees fit. I also have a letter from the Conservation Commission. Dear board members, at the July 25th meeting of the Conservation Commission, the 2 special exception cases were discussed, one of which is this particular case. The commission had no opposition to either request at 281 Charles Bancroft Highway, which is this one, or at 10 Lilac Center, which is a separate application, not this one here. So essentially, the Conservation Commission is expressing no objection to the request. Therefore, I don't expect to see them here tonight since they submitted the letter. Is the applicant here? You're Richard?
I'm Richard Jefferson.
Okay, and you are?
Greg Jeffrey.
Greg Jeffrey?
Jeffrey Land Survey.
Jeffrey Land Survey. Okay. You guys familiar with the application process and what you need to do in order to get through the criteria?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead then?
Okay. Just a little background. We have been before the Conservation Commission. You just read the letter. And last night, the 3-lot subdivision was conditionally approved pending the decision of the zoning board.
Conditionally approved by planning board? You mean?
Conditionally approved,
By
yeah.
the planning board.
Yes.
And the only condition is that it gets approved at the zoning board?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, this was the plan that was conditionally approved. This is the land remaining. It's 29 acres. It actually goes all the way out to Albuquerque. These were the two lots. This is the existing lot right here. This is the building lot right here. This is the proposed driveway. We have a state curb cut approval that comes for this location right here. The intent is to skirt this wetland right here along the existing path. There's an existing path that has been used for field use in the past, and to bring the driveway up to the location of the proposed dwelling. Now, in this plan, you're going to see a proposed house and a proposed 4K and a proposed well, but those are just to illustrate the relative size of the houses in the 4K area. When I mean 4K, I mean septic system area that you're able to use. The planning board requested a drainage study done in this area because one of the abutters to the north expressed concerns about possible watershed to the north. And I'm not sure if you got the letters from T.F. Moran and from Lou Karen, which is the town's engineer.
June 29th?
I believe so, but it's from T.F. Moran, and one is from the T.F. Moran, and one's from Lou Karen, stating how they felt about this design. The house location area is to be in this area, and based on the existing contours and a proposed grass interceptor swale, the water would be channeled to the south. There's an existing wetland area right here. Lou Karen went so far as to say that he thought that the watershed to the north would actually be reduced into the wetland area that's here, and this actually drains further south, and it goes behind the library. So we thought this would be the most logical place because it skirts the wetlands. There's no mitigation to be involved in this area right here. And the two engineers seem to agree with us about the location of the proposed driveway.
Okay. Before you go any further, I do have the letter. I think this is it. This letter is dated June 29th, 2018. As you say, TFM Civil Engineers. This says TFM performed a review of the proposed subdivision, map 12, lot 27 at 281 Charles Bancroft Highway, prepared by Jeffrey Land Survey, LLC. The purpose of our review was to review the placement of the proposed house and driveway on the subject lot to determine if the development of that house lot would affect drainage on the abutting property to the north, map 12, lot 30. And then it goes on. There is an existing path on lot 27 that is a divide that separates the drainage areas and directs existing runoff to the north and south of the path. With the proposed layout, there is a portion of the house and driveway that will be within the drainage area north of the path. This development would be a minor change to stormwater runoff. However, to mitigate the runoff from the proposed house and driveway, we recommend a grass interceptor swale be installed between the development and the northern abutting property. See attached plan prepared by TFM Moran. The swale will collect the runoff from the developed area and convey the stormwater to a driveway culvert that flows south away from the northern abutter and discharges to the wetlands on site. The existing wet area is sloped to discharge any collected water to the south. With the recommended grass interceptor swale and driveway culverts, there will be a reduction in the drainage area and runoff to the abutting lot, map 12, lot 30 to the north. Please contact me, et cetera, signed and stamped. And then the attached map, I think, is just a smaller version of what you just had up on the screen.
Correct.
Okay. Through that property.
So that is also in the record. And again, I apologize just for those other folks that are present. We're hearing the first case on the agenda. As I said earlier, there's two other cases to be heard after this. The typical process is the applicant, for every request, you have to go through a certain criteria in order to get your variance or special accepted granted. So the first phase of this hearing, if you will, the applicant is going to present their reasons as to why they think it should be approved. We may ask them questions back and forth. After they're done presenting their information, we will open up to the public. So at that point, if people have questions, comments, concerns, that's when you would want to do it. And then once we've gone through any public input, we'll close public input. The board deliberates right here in public, and then we will vote and make a decision on the applicant. After that's done, we move on to the next case. And the next case on the agenda was I don't know who's here and who's waiting, but it is
Denise Jean,
and then the last one,
Raymond Laundry.
Raymond Laundry is the last one. So, okay, I apologize if you want to just continue forward. You just work through the criteria then if you can. You have your application with you? No.
We submitted it.
Yeah, typically you just,
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to read all of this for you. I'll give this to you.
Yeah.
But you just need to expand on the criteria required for granting the application.
Okay, we are requesting a special exception for ordinance section 1208.00. The description of the proposed use is a proposed driveway a portion of which will be in the wetland buffer zone. The proposed use, construction, and or alteration shall be constructed in such a way that does not unduly restrict the water flow, because the proposed driveway will be constructed with multiple culverts and be super elevated with a cross slope pitch so that the flow of water will not be impinged. The proposed use is not in conflict with any and all of the proposed intentions listed in section 1200.01 in the ordinance, because the proposed driveway is intended to be in a low-intensity pathway utilizing an existing cart path. There is no proposed dredging or filling of wetland areas. The use or activity proposed and its attendant impacts cannot reasonably be avoided because of the configuration of lot 12-28 in the flagged wetlands. The only access to the backlands is by the existing cart road. Otherwise, one would be required to dredge and fill wetlands. It can be showed that the least damaging route and methodology have been selected, and that which is being proposed is the best practical alternative, because it is the best possible alternative, because they would not be required to dredge or fill any wetlands. It can be shown that a reasonable, acceptable impact mitigation measures have been incorporated where necessary and appropriate to minimize the wetland loss or degradation, because the proposed driveway is not expected to impact the wetland area. No significant impact on the aquatic habitat of rare or endangered species as listed by the state of New Hampshire or federal government will result, because the proposed driveway is not expected to impact the wetland area. It can be shown that adequate erosion and sedimentation control methods appropriate to the use are incorporated as detailed by the current recognized BMPs, Stormwater Management and Erosion and Sedimentation Control Handbook for Urban and Developing Areas in New Hampshire, Rockingham County, well, this is Hillsborough County, but Rockingham County Conservation District, NHDES, and Soil Conservation Service, August 1992, as amended, because the construction of the proposed driveway is to utilize hay bales, silt fences, and the best construction practice, to use best construction practices. It can be shown that the state wetlands permits as required have been obtained, because no state permits are required, because the proposed driveway is outside the border of vegetated wetlands and no dredging and filling of the area is required.
Thank you.
We have a copy of that. We're going to get that back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
That's
I need that one for the file. Is this the same map you had up, or is this a different map?
No, it's the same, but on the one that I had up from TFRN, they highlighted, they grayscaled the wetlands, but they highlighted the proposed driveway.
Yeah, that's it.
So the existing lot is number 285, the existing building?
There is a building there.
There is a building in that location. That's a smaller lot. The existing lot is 281. You can see that the highlighted line goes around 285.
When you say there's a building, is it a commercial building or is it a
No.
house?
Just to give you an idea.
Where are we?
This is the barn, yeah.
Yeah.
You know the new landing, the new,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like right here.
okay.
This is the Dalton farm right here. There's a barn on the riverside of 3A right here.
Yeah.
The library would be here.
Gotcha.
There's a farmhouse relatively close to the road right here. And there's, what color would you say that is?
It's like a garrison. It's a raised ranch type of a house. Is it not brownish?
Yeah, this would be that.
Okay.
So where's there's a third, the proposed subdivision creates another lot that's not on the map then, right?
Right. What it is that's going to be land remaining. This is from last week. This is the area that I showed
Okay,
because the lot as it stands goes all the way back to Ellicott.
It's a slice.
Historically, it actually went past that.
Yeah.
So it's almost 4,800 feet long. It's almost a mile long.
Wow.
To do that on a sheet, what I did is I just highlighted this sheet right here,
yeah,
and that's the view that you have right there.
gotcha.
So that, if you
Square it
cut that
off,
out,
yeah.
that's the land remaining. And that's for future consideration.
So is that driveway being constructed in such a way that it could access the rest of the land, or, it doesn't matter?
Well, if you take a look at the grades right here, it would be relatively prohibitive, and I don't think that the applicant at this point has designs on, going back there. Because this is a pretty steep pitch. Now, there is a cart road that goes this way, but it's
Yeah, goes off of the land.
pretty prohibitive.
Interesting.
So right now, this proposed driveway in the future could actually become a road to the back 29 acres.
It'd have to be two different specs then, right?
Yeah.
Wider and
Say that.
different
Oh,
colors.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's not the intent.
That's not what he's
The
asking
intent
for.
purpose is for a single family.
and the frontage of this lot, so essentially it meets all the requirements, it's just the impact of putting the driveway in.
Yeah.
But it's just that a portion of the driveway is within the 50-foot buffer.
How much of the driveway is in the buffer?
Is square footage?
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
The driveway itself versus the setback off the driveway?
Well, the driveway the exception is because it's in the buffer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering how much of that driveway is in the buffer?
Yeah, in other words,
I mean, square footage, I haven't done a calcs on it.
What percentage of the driveway is in the buffer?
Percentage?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get a feel for how much of it, because it's hard to see.
10%. I don't know, it's hard to say.
where is it?
This is the
Right
setback
there.
right
Is
here.
that where these?
Very
This is
beginning?
the
Actually, that's
wetland.
the problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. So there's the 50-foot buffer right there. Yep. Okay.
So what part of the driveway there, can you show me where the buffer is?
On this one right here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. So here's the proposed driveway.
Right.
Okay, so here's the
Like this,
50-foot buffer right here.
Okay,
So it would be like
That
that.
much. Okay.
Right here.
I got you. So
You're
it's-
right.
It's,
Yeah, so it's this cloud right
this
through
is that
here.
cloud right there, right?
it's this much.
I think it's this, all of this is
Is the buffer?
the buffer, which goes there.
That's- Right.
Goes through both sides.
What is cross flow pitch? Can you explain that?
Sorry.
Cross flow.
So this must be the wetlands right in here, then, right?
If you look at a road that's, let's
that's
take
the
Albuquerque,
buffer.
it has a crown.
Right.
Okay, so if rain falls, it's gonna go to
To-
one side.
It's like a
But
football
if you
field.
wanted to
Oh,
go
I
in one
guess right
direction,
here.
you would what's called,
Must be from here to
civil
there.
engineering is called super elevate.
Okay,
An exaggerated portion of that would be like an NASCAR track where you.
which is way up,
you know,
yeah.
You put it up and water would sheet to one side or the other. It's just a method of handling drainage.
So they're gonna super elevate one side of that driveway?
Well, that is,
Conservation.
a portion of it would be over here.
Yeah.
And then there's
Down
going
there.
to be,
Is that mine?
then it's gonna be handled with culverts here and here.
Culvert.
So a portion of it would be over by this, where it enters,
Yeah.
where the curb cut is. And then the drainage would be handled with the 15-inch high-density polyethylene culverts.
Yeah.
So the buffer part is all gonna be handled by culverts.
Culverts, yeah, there's a culvert right there that just collects any water right here, and it just flows right into the wetlands immediately to the south.
You said a portion of the driveway was set up to flow south, not north. What part of that was it?
Well, it's all the water is set up to flow to the south here, right, to the wetland area, because all this naturally drains here.
Yeah.
And if you cross slope it, then it's gonna sheet to the side. Any water that's on, we call it impervious, any water that's on the impervious just goes to the side. You know, where it's here, it's not naturally collected. Where any water that's in this watershed is collected, like right there.
Okay, through the culvert.
It's elegant in its simplicity.
That's a good thing.
I'll write that down, elegant.
Yeah, bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker, yeah.
Any other questions before I open it up to the public input?
Great, thanks.
Like to open it up, what?
So there's no fill to bring in for this driveway? You're not gonna raise or elevate that at all?
There would be some fill in this area to get over the culvert.
Yeah.
But that's it.
So this is a high and dry area on that piece of land.
On this piece of land, it is now. Yeah. It was just, there was some concerns raised about construction in this area.
Mhm.
And in this area, and not impeding any existing water flow. And on top of that, not only is the water not impeded on flowing south, it's actually channeled through this interceptor swale right here, and it's encouraged to go south here. So you're actually reducing the amount of water flow to the south. So that was the intent, the plan intent of that area.
What's the likelihood that this, design that you have might change once you start because you discover something in the field? Because, if this were to be approved, for example, it's typically approved based on per plan. So then you get out in the field and you change things, well, then you're stuck without a variance or a special exception anymore.
So what I was explaining before is the location of the house and the septic system, they aren't set in stone. Meaning, for instance, there was a house further south where what they wanted to do is they wanted to orient the house to collect solar electricity. That's what they wanted to do. So the house rotated 90 degrees on the plan. But what's going to happen is the intent is not to change the plan inside the buffer zone. But say they wanted the garage here as opposed to here.
Yeah, you can do all that.
You know what I mean? As long
But
as
you're not
it's under
impacting the
buffer.
wetland area, yeah, exactly.
So that would be, as long as it's outside of the buffer zone, I expect it to stay. But, that gives some wiggle room to the preferences of a future buyer, how he wants his house oriented, the size of the house. But the house that I drew on there was that's a 60 by 40 box with a 40 by 28 garage, which is very oversized, but I just wanted to show the relative size.
Conservation Committee didn't put any stipulations?
No, we discussed the same plan.
Any other questions? At this time, I'd like to open it up to public input. Is there anybody who would like to speak? Please state your name and address, please.
I have no problem with it as long as they're sending the water south, but you have 3 pipes, 15 inches around, sending it to the library. When we did Stagecoach, when they did Stagecoach, wasn't there a problem when they flooded Stagecoach out? I mean, if you're sending 45 inches of water through a pipe down that way, I think we might want to look at our library before we flood them out, or people downstream. It's up to you guys. You guys.
No, I understand. It actually,
I mean, it doesn't matter to me as long as it's heading south. It ain't heading towards me. But
no,
I mean,
there's those. I mean, the zoning board looks at really just the ordinances as they're written for the town, and then the very specific list of criteria that you would need to meet for either a variance or a special exception. So this is a quasi judicial process. As far as engineering and understanding, you know, the kind of impact something like that might have on another property, that's typically flushed out during the planning board. And in this case, because they're dealing with wetland conservation committee, it's actually a requirement for this particular case as a special exception that they had notified the conservation committee. They are, I'll say it, more qualified than we are to understand hydraulics and the wetlands and the mapping and what else might impact, you know, something down there. And certainly the planning board, you know, that's their purview to.
And the building inspector will then be responsible for making sure they build it.
don't have Kevin anymore.
No, not yet.
Yeah, but it's not us. We're not going out there policing the construction of this. It's going to be the building inspector to go out there and verify that they're doing it correctly, according to the plan.
Yeah. Did you, by any chance, go to the planning board meeting?
Yes.
You did. And did you raise that same concern over there?
Well, I mean, they're sending a lot of water heading south.
Yeah.
I mean, I have them headed south instead of on my property, but you guys need to look at where that water's going. You got 30, 45 feet, 45 inches of pipe heading south.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how it works, but I doubt they're full.
Well, maybe not, but
They usually, there's signs that the big turtles can
call the
go.
librarians and tell them they want to get their boat ready.
Yeah, understood.
You should tell them you fills up. You guys fills up.
Appreciate that. I understand, and I mean, I can certainly pass it on to. Well, I know who's filling in for Kevin, and that is the town. What's it, administrator? I keep wanting to say manager, but I don't think we
Troy?
can call. Yeah,
Really?
he's filling in for Kevin for the time being. I needed somebody. So again, thank you very much for that, and I can pass that on. I hope you understand the response. I'm not trying to brush it off by any means. Anybody else who'd want to speak, either for or against? Okay, I think we're done with the public input. Anybody else have any questions? Anything else you'd like to add? Nope. Okay, I'll close public input. You guys want to deliberate? Do I have any motions? Questions?
They covered the exceptions. In my opinion, they covered the exceptions. And now they're going to be held to it.
Yeah, I would have liked a little more detail as to the actual impacts to the wetlands, but I'm sure John got into that, or the conservation committee got into that in detail.
How wide is this driveway?
It's 12 feet right there.
12 feet?
Typical, what, 11,
So-
11 and 12.
So if you were, in the future, if we were to give you a variance to impact the wetland, and you were to expand this driveway to the furthest lot out, now you would have a 24-foot road? That isn't the
Just- I'm
intent.
just-
Yeah.
I'm just curious because it would impact the wetland
Speak on
more.
did you want to talk
The
about-
town is actually looking at the land in the back, approximately 30 acres for conservation
Okay.
purchase.
Yeah, if they widen that, that would come into the directly.
Yeah, that's why, I'm
Yeah, I understand the question. We can't really vote on the hypothetical.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
What's
if
gonna
you
happen down the road?
take a look at that also, there's a couple things. There's a crossing here. There's you'd have to deal with this. It's almost like a mesa up
Okay.
here. Yeah, like Mr. Jefferson said, the intent of the land in the future is considered for conservation. Okay.
That should be on the top pages. You make a motion for me?
Not yet.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, actually, it comes this way. There's a old trolley path. So, and then there's the path going out to the other land.
How long have you owned this lot? All this?
35 years.
To your question about learning more about the wetland, no significant impact on the aquatic habitat, blah, blah, blah. The proposed driveway is not expected to impact any wetland area. Would there have been a wetland scientist enlisted to look at this?
Well, I think that's what,
Not the buffer.
No.
necessarily.
Not the buffer, because we're not really affecting the wetland
That's right.
itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's what they're saying.
The
yeah.
buffer is,
That's what that letter
we're
means.
changing
Yeah,
the
that's
buffer
what it means.
from a percolated soil to a non-percolated driveway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the
Portion of the buffer, yeah.
Exactly.
It must not be vernal pools, because isn't it 100 foot if you're dealing with a vernal pool?
Yeah.
It used to be like 750 back in the day, which is pretty prohibitive.
Okay,
Motion to accept the application for variance for a special exception from LZO section 1208.00.
technically we've accepted it. I'll take a motion to grant.
Granted, that's what I meant.
That's what he said. I heard that.
So I have a motion to grant the special exception.
I'll second it.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 500. You know, you gotta wait 30 days. For an appeal process to go through before you can do anything, but we'll put together the notice of decision and get that in the mail to you in the next week or so. That should be it.
Okay.
That's all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, just give me a minute and we'll move on to the next one. Did anybody drive out to look at this?
They didn't.
I wish I did that tonight. I didn't make it.
It's number 2.
Don't worry, I'll fill in all the blanks like I usually do. Basics in there, and that's all.
Speech. If not, I printed one up for you. Okay.
Okay. Well, this one. It may be multiple, maybe not. Multiple copies of the minutes.
I have some reduced copies if those are more,
Oh, you look at this one too, huh?
I'm
You've got reduced
required,
copies.
yeah, I'm
I just don't need
required.
to keep all the multiple copies in the file either.
I'm
So.
required to give the full size, but I find the
Multiple copies.
handier.
I got no room.
If your windows are open, you might want to close them.
Last night, it was one so close it knocked the lights out last night.
Oh, yeah.
I was cooking it all last night. Metal spatula.
Yeah. The generator came on.
Can you clear that down?
All right, so, first of all, let me get through some technicalities, read some of this stuff off. We actually have two requests on this particular application. Well, I could ask them. Want to do the special exception or the setback, or what is it?
Does one depend on the other?
Yeah, certainly. I would put the cart before the horse. I'd like to do the frontage.
Okay. That's the one I have.
About intros. How about intros? Don't I need names?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so we have case number 2018-03. Name of the applicant is Denise Jean, address 10 Lilac Court, Litchfield, New Hampshire. The owners are Denise Jean and Stephen N. Wilkins. Also 10 Lilac Court, Litchfield, New Hampshire, 03052. The location is 10 Lilac Court, map 6, lot 88. As I said, they're going to be requesting two variances. The first is a variance from Article 502.00, zoning to permit a proposed lot with 102.72 of frontage where 150 foot is required. That's number one. Then the second one, and I assume the second one would be heard only if they grant the first one. Perhaps. Well, let's just read it anyways. Again, same applicant, same owners, same location of property, 10 Lilac Court, map 6, lot 88. This is for a special exception from section 1208.00 to create a driveway within the wetland buffer zone. So, to your point, or to your request, we will start with the frontage requirements.
Okay.
And if you would like to go ahead.
Okay.
Start it off. Oh, I apologize.
Yep.
Before you go, I do have a letter from the Conservation Commission. It's the same letter that I read earlier. Again, Conservation Commission met at their July 25th meeting. This particular application was discussed, and the Conservation Commission had no opposition to this particular cost. So we have a letter of support from the Conservation Committee also on file. So, go ahead.
Would you like to go first on? Okay. So what you want to do is you want to read the header, right? It's the. Oh, you don't have the you just have the answers. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you read yours, because we're dealing with the frontage first.
Okay.
And I'll deal with it being in the buffer zone because that's more of a technical question.
Okay, so the first question and answer.
You just have to say what you want to do.
This is Denise Jean, right?
Yes, this is Denise Jean. My fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct me.
Let me just preface this by saying that what the owner applicant would like to do is to create two lots. One is she has an existing 20-acre lot. Well, it's 19.95. If I say 20, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. She has a 20-acre lot. What she would like to do is create a 5-acre lot. She has plenty of acreage. We'll talk about the driveway in a little bit, but the applicant is looking for relief from the 150-foot frontage setback regulation. Currently, there is 252.72 feet of frontage. What the applicant wishes to do is have 150-foot frontage on the existing dwelling and the remaining 102.72 feet to be the frontage of the new created lot, which is less than 150. So she's looking for 47.3 feet of relief in that instance. So if you want to read the...
So start right here.
Yeah.
Okay, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because there is a substantial amount of acreage to accommodate a home. The property will be enhanced with a quality, lovely home. The entrance of the property is located at the end of a cul-de-sac, thereby having a minimal effect on the current aesthetics of the neighborhood. And the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the home is to be built on the dry lands, thereby averting any wetlands. Substantial justice is done because my husband and I have made a substantial financial investment in our current home. We love our home and our neighbors. We live with our autistic son who joined us here in the middle, Douglas, who is an absolute joy, but he is not able to live on his own. Unfortunately, my husband has been recently diagnosed with cancer. Therefore, having a caregiver live close by would allow us to stay on the current home. My youngest son, Derek, and his fiance would like to build and live there. Kylie Bork is a longtime resident of Litchfield. Her dad, Kevin, is a selectman and a firefighter. A wonderful family and a wonderful young lady. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished because the proposed home will be built in a style that complements the neighborhood. The acreage of the proposed site is larger than the other homes on Lilac Court, with the exception of our lot at 10 Lilac Court. The wetlands will not be disturbed. They will actually serve as a front of the house buffer, which in turn increases the home's curb appeal. And literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because, as my husband and I age, the physical and emotional demands of overseeing our autistic son and attending to my husband's health issues will only increase. Having a caregiver live so close would greatly alleviate our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's Lilac Court?
Okay, there's a little locust map on the top right. Okay, if you go to, you know what Snowdrop is? You know where
Yeah.
Wilson's Farm is?
Yeah.
Almost across from Wilson's Farm is Snowdrop.
Yeah.
You take that curve on Snowdrop and then take a
Up
left.
in there. Okay.
Yeah, and at the very end, it's a
I got
cul-de-sac.
you. Okay. I got it.
So it's in the back of Snowdrop. So what you saying?
It's
Well-
to the left.
Yeah, you go to, like, Snowdrop is you
Take a left
come
on
off
Snowdrop.
3A.
Yep.
Yeah, take a left on, it rounds, takes like a 90-degree curve,
Okay.
and then you take your first left.
Okay.
And you go to the end of that road. And it's,
There's maybe, 7, 8 houses, all
Yeah.
duplexes on Lilac, and we're at the
Yeah.
end.
So are we open to ask questions?
Yeah, please.
This proposed lot line
Mhm.
that you have there,
yes.
that 102 foot, does that go to the existing dwelling right now? And then this is going to be a shared driveway off of it?
Yes.
Okay. So there really is no frontage. Am I right to say that? I mean, the frontage goes with the existing driveway.
No.
The driveway isn't part of the frontage. It's the,
Because the driveways
Right.
are, the existing driveway is already there.
it's the cul-de-sac.
And this is the proposed driveway.
Right.
Correct.
So this is 102 feet here?
No, it's still based on the lot, right? So you've got this as a frontage and this as a
It's
frontage.
the cul-de-sac that provides the frontage.
Right.
The cul-de-sac creates the frontage?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay.
So right now you have 252 blah, blah, blah feet frontage.
Correct.
And the driveway is where it is today. It's going to remain
Yeah.
as is today.
Right. I tried to show the existing pavement as being gray, and then I
Yeah.
sort of hatched the proposed.
You're going to come off the existing driveway. You're going to go in about
Yeah.
20 feet and then come off to the right of the existing driveway.
Correct. Yeah. A little more than 20 feet. Yeah.
Has this
Yeah.
property been subdivided or does that occur after?
After, because to put on the last project, we didn't really put the cart before the horse. It happened because there was some scheduling with the planning board in July and all that stuff. But on this, we'd like to get the variances and waivers before we go to the planning board. That way, less hiccups as we go along.
So if we were to grant this, it would be incumbent upon that subdivision taking place.
Of course.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, most definitely. And this driveway doesn't impact wetlands. There are wetlands in there, right?
there are wetlands. Can I address that on the next one?
Oh, yeah, I forgot there is a second part.
Yeah,
to
there's
this.
2 parts.
Right now, we're saying it on
There had to be a second part of it.
We're doing one part at a time, am I correct?
Right. Yeah, okay.
And we're doing this as if it were subdivided already.
Yes, that's the intent, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
Our decision would make any sense if it wasn't subdivided.
Right. Right.
So does anybody recall the reason why there's 150 feet frontage for properties? What was the intent
No,
on
it's
that?
all just about the overcrowding and safety. It's similar to the side setback.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it seems like that is kind of normal on normal roads, but not necessarily cul-de-sacs. Isn't cul-de-sacs an exception?
It isn't an exception, but
It's not an exception, but
Is
isn't
it-
it different?
Is it
But
because
this-
of telephone poles?
This piece of land would have
50 feet apart.
It could be.
252 feet of frontage right now, correct? So then you subdivide it and you have one lot that would automatically meet the criteria, and you have another lot that wouldn't.
Right.
For frontage.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the application.
Did this require a variance or something to build the first house? How long has that house been there?
About 11 years. We've been there for about 7. Lenny Vigent built it and lived there for 6 years and sold it to me, and we love
I
it.
don't know, it just sounds awful familiar. That's one
Yeah.
at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it might have been though.
The current property has 252 feet, so it,
Oh, no, I get that. And it wouldn't have been a frontage. I didn't know what it might have been back then, but I could have sworn it was something back then.
There's-
I don't know what it was.
The only thing I can think it's subject to is there's a small slope easement.
Yeah.
But that,
When you guys met with conservation, oh, well, that'll be for the second part too.
yeah.
Correct.
On the frontage.
So this frontage requirement is to make it so that our town doesn't become house.
In the past, when we talked
Right.
about, yes, in the
And-
past,
and-
when we talked about, it's all part of lot dimensions and
Right.
requirements.
We,
exactly.
the country look and feel and not the urban row house appeal, right?
Something like that, yeah.
But what you're saying is that this is already a, what do you call this?
cul-de-sac.
A cul-de-sac.
I think seems to be an exception to that.
Whether it is or not, it feels like it.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm saying.
It would only matter if they put a fence there and a fence there. You wouldn't notice it otherwise.
That's right. That's right, you wouldn't.
Right. Don't put a fence there.
there.
There's like huge trees in the middle of the cul-de-sac. You can see the house.
Right, and-
You're driving down the
Yeah,
street.
This, yeah.
In the middle of the
In the middle
cul-de-sac?
of
Yes.
In the middle of the
There's
cul-de-sac.
about 10 of
You
them.
can see our house once you went around.
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Good too.
Just for a point of clarification, I certainly sympathize with everything that you said here, but we're not proposing, I'm sure you're not proposing to put any stipulations in the deed that says this is some particular owner who's going to be a caregiver. You don't want to do that.
No.
So if we're granted a variance to build a house,
Yeah.
whoever lives there lives there.
Yes, I met with my lawyers today. Everything's
Yeah.
great.
All right, any other questions?
I got one more.
All right.
Want to wait to the tape?
I was gonna go, oh yeah,
Are there any more house lots on that road that share a driveway?
There are a few with multiple driveways.
There's 2 split driveways
Yeah.
on Stone Drop before leading to Lilac.
Right. There are a few multifamilies.
Okay,
All the houses on the road are multifamilies except theirs.
okay.
Every house is at 10 Lilac Court is duplex.
Which requires a 250-foot
Right.
front, a 200-foot frontage.
Yep.
Right. $100
Must be in
each
an overlay
side,
district, huh?
which is still
Yep.
less than that. Yeah, okay.
I can't remember. There was something else here. All right, anything else? I'll open it up for
I'm
public input. Do we have any public input? Anybody would like to speak in favor or against the application? In favor. Say your name and address now. Sorry, you got it. Please, name and address.
Hi, Mark. I live in Gary, but my parents live on 15 Snowdrop Lane.
Okay. Yeah.
Carly.
How do you spell your last name?
Bour.
I don't know if you need it right now.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have any other public input, so I guess I'll close public input, and at this point we can deliberate, unless you have anything else to add. Anybody have anything?
No.
No? To me, this is, it's pretty similar to one that I can recall about 3 years ago, where we had a similar situation. And I recall that one was granted, if I'm not mistaken.
What solidifies is, to me, is
In the
that,
cul-de-sac.
well, it's a cul-de-sac. Number two, as she indicated, all they indicated, all the other houses are duplexes, which require 200, 100 each side, right? This is still 2 feet greater than 100 each side. So it's
From that
not
perspective,
inconsistent
yeah.
with the rest of the house. In fact, your existing house is inconsistent from the rest of the house. Take it down.
No, thank you.
So,
Make an offer.
yeah. I'll make a motion to
Oh, good.
grant a variance from LZO section 502.00 to case number 2018-03.
So then, to be a little more specific, we are going to grant the variance for the proposed lot with 102.72 feet of frontage where 150 foot is required. So the variance is, as you said, 47.28
28.
square feet.
Grant a variance of 27
Feet.
Yeah, feet.
Yeah.
What do you say? Variance.
So I have a proposal to grant the variance of, what did I say? 47.28 feet. Frontage where 150 foot is required. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Al. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries 5-0.
Part two.
That's A. Part one, part A, whatever. Now, on part two. This, I already said that, create the driveway within the wetland buffer zone. So if you guys want to take it away, we'll go and move on from there.
Okay, the proposed use, construction and/or alteration shall not be constructed in such a way that does not unduly restrict the flow of water, because the petitioner would be utilizing a pre-existing graded cart path that has historically used in the past, that has been historically used in the past as part of a gravel excavation endeavor. There is a pre-existing ductile iron culvert under the path so that the flow of water is not restricted. The proposed use is not in conflict with any and all of the purposes and intentions listed in section 1200.01 of the ordinance, because this request will not be in conflict with the section because the proposed driveway is a low-intensity access path to the back portion of the subject lot. The driveway will cross in the vicinity of wetlands without dredging or filling of any wetland area. The use or activity proposed and its intent impacts cannot be reasonably be avoided because the proposed driveway is the most direct route to the buildable area of the proposed lot. Any other pathways would require crossing the wetlands. It can be shown that the least damaging route and methodology have been selected, and that which is being proposed is the best practical alternative because the proposed route is pre-existing and would not require any disturbance of the wetland area. It can be shown that its reasonable and acceptable impact mitigation measures have been incorporated where necessary and appropriate to minimize wetland loss or degradation, because there is no wetland mitigation areas proposed because there will be no dredging and filling of wetland areas. No significant impact of the aquatic habitat of rare or endangered species as listed by the state of New Hampshire or federal government will result because there will be no significant impact on rare or endangered species because there'll be no dredging and filling of the wetland area. I'll enter number 7. It talks about it can be shown that the adequate erosion and sedimentation control methods appropriate to the use are incorporated as detailed by the current recognized BMPs, e.g. Stormwater Management, and Erosion and Sedimentation Control Handbook for Urban and Developing Areas in New Hampshire, Rockingham County Conservation District, NHDES, and Soil Conservation Service, August 1992, as amended because the proposed driveway is, it should say is to use an existing path. So any amelioration or improvement of the existing drive will be minimized. It can be shown that the state wetland permits as required have been obtained because there have been no state or wetland permits filed because there will be no dredging and filling of wetland areas. So I'll try to tell you, like, go over what the area looks like. Historically, in the past, this is there is an existing graded road that was used during for hauling out gravel, sand, gravel. And it's just beaten down. It's worn. It's actually a raised bed. There's a ductile iron pipe. It's 14 feet long. It's underneath the pathway. It's raised above the wetlands, and that's what we propose to use as a bed for the proposed driveway.
So you won't change the culvert or nothing?
The culvert, no, it's a beautiful 12-inch ductile iron culvert between the two wetlands. It's beautiful. Well, not beautiful.
And we know from the letter
yeah,
that you've already met with the Conservation Commission on this particular.
Right. In Conservation Commission, I'm not sure, but they mentioned that they were going to do a site walk also before their letter. So
that was Tom's letter, though, right? So
no, the Conservation Committee did submit a letter on this one too. So they must have done their site walk.
Yeah, Tom had no issues with it. It's utilizing what's there to minimize any damage. The good thing about having all that traffic over the past decades go over it is that it's just solidify. There's little damage. I mean, if you use that grade, it's a perfect use of an existing path.
Yeah, we took dump trucks down there last year too to get gravel to build a bocce court in the backyard. So it's sturdy enough to at least take a dump truck down there.
On the diagram, it's a lot thinner than the existing driveway.
It is. I used a nominal 12-foot, which is
the existing
Litchfield,
okay.
yeah, regs. Yeah.
A double car width on the existing, close to it.
Just about.
The lot looks like it has a lot of water on it. Or a lot of wetland, I'll say.
The border of vegetated wetland is it's actually it's slightly smaller than what you're looking at on my conceptual plan. The actual surveyed wetlands are a little bit smaller than that, but yeah, and they're hydraulically connected with that culvert, and they drain to the north. And
Sand pit.
What's that?
Sand pit.
The sand pit, and also it's sand and gravel underneath, so it tends to percolate a little bit better than, let's say, clay,
This, on this drawing, this particular cutout here, is that the shape of the lot, the bold lines?
Yes.
This irregular shape?
Yeah, and the hatched lines are what you see. I sort of blew it up right there. Yeah.
So basically, the new lot would wind up being just under 5 acres and the other 15 would essentially be the existing.
Yes.
Right,
house.
correct, yeah.
All right, any other questions?
So you're essentially paving an existing path for the driveway, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And do you know what the area of buffer you're impacting? Just like the last one.
Yeah, I don't know the area, but if you ask me between here and here, where the impact would be, I would say,
What's the distance?
I would say 100 feet, 150 feet. It's hard to say with I have a reduced copy.
Because typically I'm used to
Yeah.
seeing specific impact to the buffers and showing sizes
Mhm.
so that we have an understanding what
Sure.
what we are approving or granting.
Yeah, and as I said with the last one, I think there'll be a similar stipulation that says as per plan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
which
right, but
kind of
because,
locks you in if you change things,
Right.
you know, depending on how
well, the-
sticky they might get, you'll end up back here.
right, I understand I'm locked into it. That's great because it's a great place to be locked into because it's such a
The
well-graded
numbers
path.
lock you in anyways.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and if I was to build a road over that wetland, that's exactly how I would build it for trucks and things like that. Use a strong culvert, grade it up, nice and wide, and then it's a great use of that road.
Sounds good. Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right, I'll close public input. We'll deliberate. I'll take a motion if anybody's got any motions or concerns, questions. No?
No concerns.
All right. Then I will make a motion to grant a special exception to section 1208-00 to create a driveway within the wetland buffer zone as depicted on the plan submitted with the application. That's my proposal. Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries 5-0. So both of those have been granted.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll be able to do all this once I'll basically transpose that I see here.
Yeah.
The usual exercise.
Now we have Roman Landry.
All right, now. Case 2018-04. Name of applicant is Raymond and Cynthia Landry. Address 5 Molson Circle in Litchfield, New Hampshire, OPO 52. The owner is the same, address the same. Location of the property, 5 Molson Circle, map 10, lot 164. They seek a variance from Article 310. I actually think that's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's 300, correct?
Yeah, 300.
It's 300 in the.
Yeah, section, I changed it already here too. Section 300 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 30-foot wide by 40-foot long, two-story barn-style garage having a carport on the left side of the garage to be 14 feet wide and 44 feet long. The garage would be set back from the right side property line no less than 10 feet, only at the front right corner of the garage. The reason I need to have garage located in this location is the property drops off about 8 feet at the back and left sides of the garage to the backyard. As it is, I'll need to place the garage at an angle so the carport can be utilized correctly. Even placing the garage at the requested location will add a considerable cost to the build due to needing a large amount of additional gravel fill and some type of retaining wall or foundation wall to hold back the soil and to support the carpet roof supporting the vertical beams. That's the request being,
Do I have an old version of the ordinances?
And
yeah, oh, you might.
I don't know how much this may impact the meeting, but what you just read, I have all new documentation that has changed because while the paperwork was submitted, and I was waiting for the hearing, I did some more measurements and I had to reduce the size of the garage on the width. I took that, added to the length. I have it here and you all can have a copy. And I had to move it to the left more to give me the 10-foot buffer I'm asking for and put it at an angle. And the carport was going on the left, is now changed to the right to allow me to move the garage further over to
You really
get
think
that
we're
10
following
foot.
you doing in our head?
Yeah.
Really?
We need to see a map.
We have maps.
So,
And what I also have with each one of these documents is pictures, and I can go step by step on each one, page 1 through I think 11, if you have any questions or anything to those.
The first thing that comes to mind, do any of these changes, would they affect a different neighbor?
Well, he's still, I think he's still
concerns,
got a side setback issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so,
Still a side setback.
during the side setbacks, still the same, 10 feet is what I'm requesting.
You're building differently on your
It's,
property.
the building's just changed slightly, correct? To make
So-
sure I meet that 10 feet.
I agree.
So it's a 10 foot, 10 foot.
Yeah.
Okay,
are
I
you
think I
ready?
get you.
Raymond?
Yes, my name's Raymond Landry,
Oh, thank you.
5 Molsom Circle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Get the names and everything.
So there's two outbuildings in the existing,
The very first page, my first intent for the garage was, as you're looking at the first page, the sheds, that's where I wanted the garage. But because of the size of the garage I'm looking to build along with the carport, it's just way too big to fit there. So looking at that, the garage is to the left and at an angle. So actually the only portion that is going to be the 10-foot setback I'm looking for is the front right corner of the garage. And from that front right corner to the right left corner, it's at an angle. So the garage setback from the back of the garage to the property line increases. So the full length of the garage is not the 10-foot variance. Basically, it's just the front right corner is what is the 10-foot variance.
do you know what the rear corner is?
Pardon me?
Do you know what the rear corner would be?
I do not, but I'd have to say you're probably looking at least 15 feet. I took 2 feet out of the width of the garage, so it was 30, now it's 28. I took 2 feet out of the width of the carport, which was 14, is now 12. I took that 4 feet of the full width reduction, added into the length, so the garage went from 44 feet long to 48 feet long.
So these are oriented properly now, right? I'm looking down the driveway. I'm
Correct.
Looking down the driveway like that.
Yep. So
And I see that the garage is just slightly pitched to the left.
yeah, so
All
that's
right.
straight down the driveway.
Yeah.
And
Looking
this-
that way.
Correct, exactly. Yeah. So
And-
these are the buildings. Actually, these are no longer there. They're over here, so the garage can be built.
This red box is is your garage.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
it's tightly, it's just
It's
slightly tilted that way so that you're close here and further away there.
correct. Exactly.
Gotcha. Understand.
Yeah. And that red line right here on the right, that's the wide part's the garage. The narrow part's the carport.
Is the carport. Gotcha. You know who this is like? It was the guy that built the previous property. What was his name? He's got that house on the corner of Pinecrest and Charles Bancroft.
The big garage?
That big garage in the back with the carport on the left in the back.
Yeah.
His left posts are within the.
Oh, within the same,
Oh, you're talking about the one that's right across from the meat.
The meat farm there, yeah. He built
Yeah,
the one on Lilac
Yeah.
Circle.
I don't know.
I remember that name from the past.
Yeah, but
Pigeon.
if you remember correctly, he submitted plans.
Yeah.
Then built something different from what the
Yes,
plans
I know.
and drawings were submitted.
He was a piece of
Then
work.
came,
Yeah.
because Kevin failed him, he had to come here for an
Yes.
for a variance. And then basically said, "No, I just built something wrong." I said,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not grounds for granting a variance.
I've measured probably 10 times over. I've had the contractor come back to the house like 4 times.
The nice thing is you get a nice
I've-
flat piece of property, right?
Pardon me?
You have a nice flat piece of property.
Yeah, and with the exception of the back, it drops the 8 feet, but
Yeah.
Question.
it's still a nice piece of land.
Do you remember this as part of your original package?
I remember, yep, and
It's
that
still
was,
working out?
that was just to show something what it's gonna look like.
Right.
And actually, the
Multiple-
picture in there that's red in the pamphlet that I gave you guys already, that is
This is the one you
the
just
actual
seen
garage,
tonight.
the red garage that's in there,
Okay.
that's the actual
And all
garage.
these were packages for the rest of the board here, but they're really kind of trumped by this one now, right?
Yes.
The only reason why I bring it up is because I have limited file cabinets. And I should not, I'll keep the original application in here, but I don't need to keep those kind of attachments because I've got all updates here.
Yeah, and what I did is like the one that you're looking at, John, that's actual Google Earth.
Yeah.
So I took our plot plan and I
Laid it on
inlaid
top.
it, correct.
Nice job. What are the 40-foot boxes indicative of?
Well, the red boxes,
I know the barn box, or
Yeah.
but there's a box in front 40 feet, one to the side.
that's
40
showing the width and the length is what, that was the intent of that.
What are those existing outbuildings or something?
No.
Page 1. No, but the 40 foot, that's
Oh, I see.
the frontal width, excuse me, and the 48 is the length.
Okay. That's just
It's
boxes around the number.
Yeah,
It isn't an actual,
No,
the box is
no.
not a dimension. It's just a box around the number.
correct.
Understood.
Yeah,
So it's a 40 by 48 foot barn.
yeah.
Oh, and then you show them.
And then the 10 foot,
And then a
The red
10-foot
box is
space
correct.
between the property line and the barn.
correct.
Got it. Nice job.
All right, well, you can go ahead and start going through the criteria if you like.
Okay, yeah.
If you would. Start top, work your way down.
Okay, section 2, request a variance. Facts supporting this request. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the variance does not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, or general welfare of the public or wildlife. The garage design will fit in with the surrounding community country setting and will be placed such that it will be pleasing aesthetically to the property and the eye. 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the proposed variance will be preserving the necessary access to the back of the lot, a safe distance between the structures, and it does not infringe on the abutters due to the location being set back, so the view of all abutters does not really change. The front right corner of the garage closest to the neighbors at 3 Molsom Circle, being Jim and Linda Bagley, would be at least 70 feet from the left corner of their house, which means the front right corner of the garage, which is a 10-foot variance, to the left rear corner of their house. 3, substantial justice is done because the orientation of the existing structure to the plot line is such that the 20-foot setback would limit placement of the proposed structure due to the back and left side property is approximately 8 feet or so lower than the rest of the property, upper property. Also, the back section of property at some point is classified as wetlands. 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished because the planned garage and landscape thereafter would not only increase our property value, but could also increase the abutter's value due to the aesthetic look and would not infringe on surrounding property. 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in any unnecessary hardship because. Do you want me to do the A, B, and C, or just go down to?
No, just go down.
Okay. If the proposed garage had to be moved further to the left to allow a larger setback, this would incur a substantial added cost increase due to a larger foundation, more site work, and fill to meet the frost requirements. The cost of proposed garage due to the size needed for protecting and storing our vehicles, workshop tools, and other personal items is going to be substantial as it is, and any added cost could cause us not to be able to afford said garage. Completion of the proposed structure would still allow reasonable emergency access between the abutters on the right and the proposed garage also to the backyard if needed. There would be nearly 70 feet between the abutters' existing building and the proposed garage.
So this aerial view, does that show buildings that are already in the footprint where you're gonna build? Is that these sheds here?
The aerial view, yeah, those sheds were there. I've moved them out of the way for the garage. Could be built. One of them is going to be removed totally. One of them is a Quonset hut, which I'm going to put down in the back of the garage, where if you look at page 7, you'll see there's a bunch of metal in a backhoe.
Mhm.
That area I'm going to clean out, and I'm going to put the Quonset hut that you see on top of the hill back there, so I can put some of my farm equipment, my backhoe and stuff in there during the winter. Then the large shed, which is a third building, I'm going to move that later on down in the back lot beside my other shed.
This one, just curious.
Yep.
Is that the property line?
Yes.
And this is the new building, yellow, with the setback roughly 10 feet.
Correct.
So all this is really on your neighbor's property.
Yes, and I have his permission.
Like the rest of us. Okay.
So you have your stuff on their property?
Yes.
And they
I-
let us clean cut that whole back area because 2 of their trees fell before and he took care of them. And
I generally take care of their property because they're elderly.
Okay.
So I help them take care of their land and stuff sometimes, so.
Yeah. So the trees don't delineate the properties really.
Correct.
You know, the only problem you're going to have is if the new owner of that property puts a fence around the whole thing.
And the new owner is supposedly at this time, God forbid, when the time comes, is going to be the son.
Yeah.
I talked to him, I was thinking of buying that piece of property where our stuff is, so I wouldn't have to go through this process.
Yeah.
But he and I talked to Kevin, I don't know how true it is, and I'd have to have it surveyed and I'd pay for it, but I don't know what minimal property size is allowed for a piece of land in Litchfield.
An acre.
It's an acre dry.
1 acre.
And that's
He's got one of the largest lots in the neighborhood.
and so this looks like a lot of property. So
Our property is 1.18 acres.
Okay.
His property, I think, is over 2.
and that's the only building on his property? The house, the main house?
Yeah, he's got a house and a garage.
I said there's 2 there.
So,
Here, these two?
yeah, so this is his house. He's got a deck in a porch.
Yeah.
And right here's the
Off to the
garage.
side.
Yeah.
What size did you say your lot was?
Our lot
Acre and acre.
is on the left side
Yeah,
of, so he's 3, we're 5. Mr. Hart,
1.18, he said.
1.1.
he's on the far left side of our property.
Yeah.
Okay.
So his property from the garage, Mr. Hart's property from the garage is 200 and something feet away probably to his nearest building. And his buildings are all up, was from the left side of our property and where the garage is going to go right to the back. Both sides drops like 8 or 10 feet. And then it slopes slightly down to the wetlands out back to the woods.
I got a few other letters that were submitted here from butters, Raymond and Cynthia Landry.
That's us.
Okay. So you guys obviously, you guys signed it. You approve it.
Good job.
Yeah, I went to all the neighbors.
James and or Linda Begley of 3 Molson Circle, map 10, lot 163. Hereby give our consent to property owners of 5 Molson Circle, Litchfield, New Hampshire, 03052 on map 10, lot 164 for Raymond and Cynthia Landry to build a barn-style garage of said size of 30 foot by 44 foot, which you said it's actually gotten a little smaller. With a 14 foot by 44 foot carport, which again, you said got a little smaller. And second story used for storage. Said garage will in no means impact on any safety or special burden for any and all butters, as well as no safety issues will be imposed due to the location of said garage for any emergency responders. Said garage would not cause any negative site infringements to any butters. Garage would not only increase the value of our property, but could add value to the butters' properties as well. So that's signed by James Begley.
Yeah, and each letter is identical. I wrote the letters. I wrote the letters, and I went to each abutter.
I actually met him in town hall.
Did you?
Here to do the application. So I told him letters from abutters are pretty good. So to your point, we have the same letter, but this one is from Kenneth and or Barbara Hart of 7 Molson Circle, map 10, lot 165. And I can show you some of the pictures where they show up on here if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be pretty much all around.
You think?
Probably anybody who who I gave notice to. So it's the same letter, just signed by Kenneth Hart.
Who's
And we
here
have-
in the room?
Well, and then we have another letter from Richard and or Julie LeBaron of 8 Molson Circle, map 10, lot 162. Same letter, signed Richard LeBaron. I have another letter, also same exact language. This is from Antonio and or Jennifer Santos of 9 Chemo Circle, map 10, lot 54. They're giving their consent as well. That's signed by Antonio, I believe. Santos. And then I have another letter, same language. This one is from Scott Doobie of 10 Chemo Circle, map 10, lot 53. Also giving their consent, and that is signed by Scott Doobie, dated 7/9/18.
Did you not get a letter from any of your butters?
I got a letter. Well, I wrote the letter, but I went to everyone personally and talked to them, and they signed it.
And you got it all?
Yeah, and they all said,
Go
"We
for
don't
it,
care
man."
what you do on your property."
Yeah.
Especially the 2 that's on Chemo Circle. They're like a quarter mile away. Even when there's no foliage on the trees, they can't see our house. They're like,
And
"Why do we have to give permission?"
10,
It's
163
you butt our property. That's why.
Those are the ones in the back.
Yes. Yeah. So it was kind of good because one of them asked me, like, "Am I going to have to go through this? Because I'm looking to put in a garage." I said,
So
"Only if you're looking for a
162 is your
variance."
neighbor across the street.
Yep.
165 is your neighbor to the left. Right?
So the immediate impact is between your property is number 5 Molson
Correct.
and number 3 Molson.
Correct.
3 is directly behind you, and 63 is your neighbor to the right. So it's everybody abutting you.
Correct.
Who needs lawyers? Oh, sorry, Ray.
I got some pictures for you. Look at those two.
I forgot.
All right, so at this point, I'll take some public input if we have any public input. Anybody want to speak in favor, oppose? Yeah,
You already signed it.
I don't, just want to make sure.
Kind of jealous.
Why? The garage?
It's a big toy box right there.
It's a lot smaller than the original one I wanted. A lot smaller. Waiting 20 years for this.
Any other questions? questions from the board? I think we are. Huh? I'll close public input.
Yeah.
And we can deliberate.
I don't see any problem with it.
I didn't see any issue with it.
So
You're public. Do you have any public input?
Your public one.
we'll close public input.
I can reopen it though.
She's an exception.
You can actually deliberate.
I haven't-
Deliberate, just can't vote.
Oh, okay. So do I have to assign you to the board for tonight?
You can recognize.
Let's recognize that Laura Gandy has showed up this evening. She's a board member, acting as an alternate.
I second that recognition.
Okay, good. I'm not sure we need it, but that's good. I'll take over tonight.
So this particular case, I was really concerned about because building something close to a property line isn't so much significant for the current owner,
Right,
but the future owners. But in this particular situation, this here shows evidence that he already has stuff on their property. He's already using that area.
That space, yeah.
It's so I have very little concern over this encroaching on that line since he's way over the line already.
Yeah, I mean, that's because the current property owner allows them to do that.
Exactly.
I see that less.
Yeah.
If you look at that trailer, the
less
trailer is
of a-
probably 20 foot long too, so.
24, yeah, 24.
I mean, I see a little less of a consideration. More, I think the fact that it's up against woods and not really blocking any view.
Yeah.
Right,
The
it isn't house to house, it's not.
Yeah, the location is good
Yeah, it's
too.
for the
And it's a
back.
fair distance away from any existing structure on the other side. That being
Right.
said, that doesn't mean they're not going to demo the house and move it back 50 feet.
They can't budge that sucker anyplace. It's,
existing
you
house?
come out the back door, it's a walkout basement, you're pretty much in wetlands.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And his pump is pumping water out of the basement all day long.
So just beyond those trees is wetlands.
Beyond those trees, it drops into wetlands. So like his backyard, both sides come down, drops to the back and goes right out to the swamp, and it's always wetlands. So there's no way, unless they spent some serious money
Interesting.
to get
He's
variances
constantly
and everything
pumping
done.
his basement.
Pardon me?
Is he constantly pumping?
Yeah, he's got one of those sump pumps in there. It's just constant. And during the spring,
Yeah.
during the thaw and everything else, it nonstop, it just pumps. And the town came in, they had to do new drainage. We only had one drainage on our road. They came in, I think, put 3 or 4 new ones to alleviate the water that used to drain down between both our properties to help him from flooding out.
Did you have a question?
I had a couple of comments, just for a point of clarification, the request, I think it's supposed to be to section 310.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys already talked about
It's
that.
300 now.
Yeah, it's, I had,
No, it should be 310.
Why?
Because he's seeking relief on the side setback, right?
No, that's all covered under 300 under the new.
yeah, something, it changed sometime back.
Well, it's really,
Because I just pulled it off. so
It's really-
I'm doing that today.
Maybe that's why, that might have been why I changed it to 310, because when I came to see you, you mentioned something about 300. And actually, there was another woman, 16, who did this basically same exact variance,
Buried right here?
and it was
That's yours,
300
huh?
then.
Then, but we've had changes and we.
Correct.
The new table, I just don't want you to get.
Yeah, you want to get the right number in there.
Right.
That's a good.
I think that's why I changed it on the new paperwork to 310, because I saw that on mine also.
I thought this, I guess, went to that from the chat.
Oh.
So 310 would be the correct.
Maybe I do have the right one. Hold on. What year are we working on?
What year is this? 2000? What's
This
this
one
say?
that amended
Amended
March
March 2007?
300? I don't even have a 310. That's
Yeah, I
what
don't
mine
I have an
is.
older one too.
So it is, I'm of the opinion it's 310,
What date? What's the date on the bottom left?
March 2017.
Mine is 2009. So yeah, that one works.
So
Yeah,
we
you're
want to
right.
make sure we just get the right number on this. We vote, right?
So this is 310. You were saying?
I'm saying it's 310.
Can you hand me the blue book that's right over under the yellow folder? Right there, right in
beside
front of you. Yep. Oh, that's what I wanted out of it anyways. What's that one say?
That's 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2016, I think it was 300, because a woman went through for the, pretty much the same variance, and she used 300 at the time.
Oh, great. Okay. What else?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The second thing would be the fifth criteria, the hardship. What makes his lot unique? And I'm not quite sure if he gave you enough information to determine what makes this lot unique and have that encroachment.
It's, the grade is a really significant.
There's a grade in one.
Not enough for him to go like that.
That's what you have to do, is to go like that.
That's why I go like that, because of the grading on that side.
Right, it was that behind the garage and the left of the garage drops off like 8 feet. I could bring in more fill to move it further over and turn it more at an angle. And then I'd have to put a deeper foundation, and it just runs into huge amounts more money than what it's going to cost already.
That's all I have.
See, but we do need lawyers.
You let me keep this, I'll take it. I'll need a placeholder as a reminder. I'll see if I can run off a few copies of that.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
I've asked for it a few times. Actually, thought I had it. This is the one Kevin gave me. Oh, well. Okay.
Ready? Motion to accept, motion to grant a request for variance from LZO section 310.00 to allow construction of a proposed garage, the construction of which would encroach into the side setback requirement.
That's the requirement of 20 foot, so he's encroaching 10 foot in.
10 feet in.
Encroaching 10 feet in to the 20-foot requirement, yes.
Okay, so I have a motion to grant the variance.
I'll
Do we have
second
a
the motion.
You have seconded?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion carries 5-0. I gotta make sure I catch that 310 thing.
I wrote it up here if you want to. I didn't write anything else, but I wrote it up here.
I'm a stickler for details. So
It's important.
I don't know who you talked to with Kevin not being around, but you gotta wait 30 days before you can start your construction.
Yep.
For the appeal process to take hold.
Now, is that, do I receive an email or anything on that? Or
We will draft a notice of decision, which essentially goes through the same criteria that you went through
Mhm.
with our, basically, interpretation of the information that you submitted, if you will, and then it'll all go in there. And then a copy of that does get sent to your house.
Mhm.
And a copy gets placed in the file. And then after that,
So it's 30 days from today.
30 days from today, not from when you receive the letter. Yeah, it'll be 30 days from today for you.
And now work out just about the perfect time from the start building from what he said.
Yeah, I don't know who they're gonna get for code officer work. Was told they were gonna look at some contract services. They've got somebody who's filling in temporarily. So we should have somebody to work with.
It's a shame. He was a good guy.
Thank you, sir. Nice job.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So you don't need this guy?
I don't need it now.
Those are bad, yeah.
Okay.
You want these two?
You're
You don't- I
If
don't
you
need
don't
those.
want, I'll take them off the hands. Yeah,
Are those dupes? Okay.
yeah, just print it off.
You go.
Okay, the only thing I'm missing is a new picture package. Now, should I get a new picture package?
Here, you can have this one.
There it is. There it is. That's what I want, right there. No, I think I need two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. I gotta duplicate that.
Four.
Good.
In West.
That's amazing.
Not bad, huh?
Never happened.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we have any other business?
I didn't have any other business on the agenda for tonight.